Russia doesn't give a flying you know what. Okay, you're manifesting yourself as a threat. We therefore shall now reallocate the resources necessary to deal with the threat. Germany doesn't understand. They're playing a game they can't win. Russia will blow Germany off the face of the map. The Russians have not forgotten what Germany was. And you now have Peskov saying Germany is becoming an enemy again. And if Germany wants to be an enemy, Russia knows how to deal with enemies. Hey, Typhoon, let me introduce you to Oreshnik. Russians are producing more Oreshniks than the Germans will have access to Typhoons. And Germany will disappear in a sea of conventional fire and explosion. There won't even be nuclear weapons involved. It'll just be the end of Germany. The Russians aren't playing games. They are building over 1,000 geranium drones, Shahed 136 modifications a day. 1,000 a day. And they're going to be firing 1,000 a day into Ukraine. Germany wants to play a game. Guess what, Germany? You don't have enough Patriot air defense systems. You don't have enough Iris-Ts. You don't have enough anything. When Russia decides to flood the zone with 5,000 drones in a day, your entire country goes bye-bye. And then they're going to hit you with Oreshniks. They're going to hit you with calibers. He wrote a book, Invasion 1944, about the Normandy invasion from the perspective of the Germans, making it look as though the Germans were simply doing honorable military work, fighting. This was the campaign, and we were military people, ignoring the fact that while that was happening, the troops he commanded were slaughtering French civilians for the crimes that he ended up being held accountable for. They're all dirty. Every single German armed officer, every general soldier was dirty. They committed the crimes, especially against Russia. This is why the Russians will never forget. You have Halder, who was the chief of staff of the German armed forces. In 1941, he signed the Commissar Order. You know what the Commissar Order is? That you capture a political commissar, member of the Communist Party. Every unit had one. You kill him on the spot. Then the Communist Order, kill them all. The von Manstein escaped it because he signed an order that said, we won't implement this. And everybody went, good luck, he's not a no, read the rest of the print. We won't implement it because it slows down our advance too much. Gather them all together and send them to the rear and let the other people kill them. It's not that he said we're not going to do this because we're good Germans. He just said it slows us down. Let's get them to the back and let them kill them all. So we can't speak of Zelensky as a Netanyahu. He is a controlled resource, a controlled asset. Why did Trump get mad at Zelensky? Think about it for a moment. Because he broke script. Zelensky forgot for a moment that his job was just to shut up and nod his head. That's what the script said. The president of Ukraine will look at the president of the United States with admiration, smile, and nod the head knowingly. And Zelensky went, no, I actually think I'm the president of Ukraine right now, so I'm going to interrupt the president. No, you're not. Slap down. Zelensky doesn't get to think on his own. He doesn't get to do anything on his own. And when he does, he gets opposed by Yermak, the head of the presidential administration, who is the control mechanism of the oligarchs. Sit there, head up the presidential administration, and keep this actor in place. And whenever Zelensky thinks that he can do something, they put him on a tour, and he's reminded in private meetings that he's a nobody. He's just a figurehead. So let's stop talking about what Zelensky wants. Also, what Zelensky wants is a script that makes sense to him, because he thought he was an actor playing a heroic role. And now he's given a script that says, you're gonna get, wait, what's the final scene? I'm gonna get strung up by my heels like Mussolini in the center square. This is posturing. So you can go to your Republican base, because right now, they're mad. They didn't want anything going to Ukraine. But what he can say now is, hey, it ain't American money. Actually, we're making money off this. You remember that in what they did in the past. The Ukrainians saying, no, all this money, it doesn't go to Ukraine. It goes to the defense industry that builds it. But that was still taxpayer money being used to do this. There ain't no taxpayer money being used to go to Ukraine. We're just building weapons and selling them to the Europeans. But this is like saying you want to buy the most exotic sports car in the world, and they can produce them at 4 a year, and there's a waiting list of 150. You ain't never going to get the exotic sports car. These Patriot missiles will never show up in Ukraine. The Russians are just going to put the pedal to the metal. In the next 50 days, rather than the Russians slowing things down, I think you're going to see Russia pounding. Any shipment that makes its way into Ukraine will be destroyed as soon as possible. Look at all the drones that are coming in. They're pounding warehouses. They're pounding factories, anything. The totality of Ukraine's defense industry infrastructure is being wasted. Everything that comes in is being destroyed. Hardly any of it's getting to the front lines. Now, how do you sell this BS to the Ukrainian people. You put on a TV show. You can laugh about it and say, how foolish are they? There was a period of time where Martin Sheen, who played an American president in a TV series called The West Wing, he was mulling a run for the presidency. Why? Because every American who saw Martin Sheen went, he's the president of the United States. Because they watched the TV show and they believed it. That's half the battle here, perception. He's perceived as a leader. And Zelensky was able to say, I played a president on TV, therefore I can be the president. I'm believable. And he was going back and he basically regurgitated to the Ukrainian people the same spiel that he gave on the TV series about corruption. We need to do this. I believe in peace, all this kind of stuff. He didn't believe any of that. He's a cocaine snorting homosexual deviant. That is him. Now, that doesn't mean that all homosexuals are deviants, but he is. He is a deviant. He lived a lifestyle that would have made cabaret performers in Berlin in the 1920s and early 30s blush. He's not a good person. He's a very bad person as a human being, his heart. But he's a convincing actor, a convincing performer. And the British and the Ukrainians were able to convert this guy into a symbol, and he became the president of Ukraine. They're going to hit you with all the other hypersonics that they have out there. The Germans are just stupid. They really are stupid. We've been watching the rebirth of the Fourth Reich being born for some time now. I've been worrying about it. It's real. These morons are out there. The only good news is that Merz isn't Adolf Hitler. He has no political viability or sustainability. And the German military is just a bunch of academic nobodies. This isn't the Wehrmacht. There was that 100,000-man army during the Weimar Republic of all World War I, hand-picked World War I veterans, all officers that became the cadre of the Wehrmacht, and it grew into. The Bundeswehr is full of schnitzel-eating, beer-drinking, fat idiots who don't know anything about war, don't know how to train, haven't put a 90-pound ruck on their back and hiked in anger, and they don't know what they're doing. Now, could they transform into something? Of course, but where's their defense industry? Other than a handful of Rheinmetall making some money, they can't produce a lot of tanks. They can't produce a lot. They've deindustrialized. In order to get where Germany wants to go, they got to spend money they don't have. And they have to get an economy that doesn't function to support a defense industry that doesn't exist. So it's all talk, but Netanyahu is Netanyahu, supported by the right-wing Zionists, etc. But he's an Israeli leader. Zelensky is a manufactured event. He's not a leader. He's an actor. Literally an actor, a comedian turned actor. Let me remind the audience, what brought him into national forefront was the fact that he starred in a TV show called Servant of the People. It's a cute little show. I saw it. I thought it was pretty funny, where he plays a teacher, an everyman, who goes off on a spiel. Somebody records it, goes on the internet, and then he becomes the president of Ukraine. And his job is to do good things for the Ukrainian. And then I think after season 2 or 3, the shortened season 3, he suddenly became the president of Ukraine. Because Kolomoisky, the guy who supported this, the guy who ran the media thing that picked this, made this happen, who was working with the British who picked this was a MI6 operation from the start. British intelligence, together with the CIA, needed to get rid of they couldn't have Poroshenko continuing to front because he's a corrupt oligarch and all that. So the oligarch said, we're going to pick a fresh face. This is the reality, and it's just going to get worse for Ukraine. Every time Great Britain or France or somebody signs a drone deal and they say we're going to increase the drone production capability, gets targeted and taken out. This is the reality of Ukraine. And for Donald Trump to sit there and shove nonsense down our throat, I want to save lives. All you did is condemn even more Ukrainians to die. Yes, some Russians will die too, but not nearly in the numbers that you think they are. There is no leverage over Russia right now. You just look like the fool you are. The other thing is, if I were Taiwan, everybody else looking at this, I'd say, this man's a nut. He can't be trusted. He's not serious. It's all posturing. It's all about him, but it's not about real security, real outcomes. As an American, I am humiliated by the president's behavior. He had no problem with killing them. He just didn't want to do it up front. Every single German officer was bad, and yet this is what became the Bundeswehr. The Nazi army was restructured to become the Bundeswehr as part of NATO, and they've been hiding in the shadows ever since. And now they're coming out. This is the reality of Germany today. It is the Fourth Reich. It's the scariest thing that's happened in Europe in a long time. And if it doesn't get nipped in the bud, we're going to be looking at another European war where Germany is at the heart of it. Germany is not the friend of the United States. Germany is only the friend of Germany. That's something people need to pay close attention to going forward. Germany is the threat. The Russians are very legally minded. For them to have any agreement with Ukraine requires legitimacy on the part of the people participating in the process. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia. There is no doubt that anybody he appoints under him to do a job, has the authority of the Russian government behind them. Zelensky is not the legitimate president of Ukraine. Hasn't been for some time now. Constitutionally, can't do it. And I know the West sits there and rewrites, it's a war. It doesn't say that in the Constitution. The fact is, right now, the leader of Ukraine constitutionally is the Speaker of the Parliament. That's who the Russians are saying, we'll do business with that person. But what we prefer is that you have new elections and you guys pick somebody who then can sit down and sign the document of surrender. But it ain't going to be Zelensky because he's not in a position to surrender anything. And that's the reality. And this is the reality of the whole government that he's built around them. It's the most corrupt edifice in the world. It doesn't represent Ukraine. It doesn't represent the Ukrainian people, Ukrainian nation. It only represents their own individual corrupt interests. So we can't compare Zelensky with Netanyahu at all, except that they're both scumbags. First of all, the U.S. doesn't have enough quality intelligence to know what the hell's going on inside Russia and Iran in terms of their relations. But maybe the Israelis do. Still have to give the Israelis credit. They had a hell of an intelligence game plan in play. And it's something the Iranians, I would imagine, are trying to clean up before round 2 starts. People are going to spit on my dead body. That's what's going to happen. Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen to you, Zelensky, because you're nothing. You're nothing. You're a throwaway talent that's lost his utility. You're the guy, you're the character in a show that the show's still popular. Believe me, the war in Ukraine's popular. Look at the Germans. They need it. They need the war in Ukraine. But they don't need Zelensky. He's a problem. So you know what happens? Showrunners just meet at the end of the series and they go, what are we going to do next season? What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the president because nobody likes him anymore. He's not a convincing character, and we're going to write him off. Meanwhile, the actor's sitting there running around as if he's got the next season coming up and he's going to be the big star. And then they show him the script and he goes, you're dead. What? I don't want to die. That's Zelensky. Let's stop talking about Zelensky as if he's a leader of anything. The Russians don't recognize him as a leader. They won't even do business with him. They say, we'll meet with him. We'll meet with an actor. President Putin meets with anybody who wants to shake his hand. Not anybody, but he meets with a lot of people. That doesn't mean that he's going to sign a business relationship with them. Or the weapon systems, 17 what? Batteries, full complement. Holy cow, Donnie, baby. Where are you getting them? Germany, they got 12. They ain't giving them up. They might give 1 or 2 up. They've already given 2 up, but they've been blown away. Let's see. Spain could give up some, but they don't have that many to begin with. Give up 1. The Netherlands, give up another one. Yeah, we're up to 4. And they're not going to happen overnight. Germany's not going to provide any transit support until they get new stuff in. And the Americans ain't building new stuff. And if they are, it's going to Israel or to replenish American stocks. This is not happening. Donald Trump is there shaking the hands with Ritter. And the other thing is, look at the arrangement. How stupid does Ritter have to be? To believe this stuff. But here's Donald Trump's thing. Hey, Mark, you're going to give up all your weapons to Ukraine. You. And then you're going to buy them from us. And we're not going to spend a penny. If I were Ritter, I would have looked there and say, Donnie, baby, stick it in your ear. You know, why don't you go? We've already drafted it up for you. It's a document. Sign it. Get the hell out of NATO. We don't need you. We don't want you. You're useless to us. You mean nothing to us because this isn't serious. This isn't serious at all. This is a joke because the Russians aren't playing your stupid game. Let me remind everybody, Donald Trump started this war. He tries to blame it on Joe Biden, but Donald Trump started this war. All of the policies that are in place that led to the events of February 2022 were put in place by Donald J. Trump. And the Russians know this. Now, the Russians, of course, being the mature, diplomatic, mature nation that they are, will have the door open to diplomacy. And it's better for Russia to talk to the United States than not talk. And so no matter how unpredictable and outrageous Donald Trump is, come on, David, outrageous. What do you think the Russians think about Donald Trump's leaked 2024 campaign where he told Vladimir Putin that I will bomb the you-know-what, bovine excrement out of Moscow if Putin moves into Kiev? The statement was never made. So Donald Trump's a liar. And the Russians are just like, who is this man child? And that's how they're treating this. What threat is here? The threat of sanctions, I already told you, that will never come to play. First of all, Russia could care less about sanctions. And the big partners out there, they're not gonna yield either, because that's the end of them. That's the end of them as being relevant. And if they come together, their combined impact on the American economy, Trump will never do this. He'll never pull the trigger on this. So if they could implement this, Israel stops being this parasite that can only exist by sucking the lifeblood out of America and Europe. And Israel is on the path of becoming actually a viable entity, the central entity, the glue that holds the Middle East together. That was the plan. And then it collapsed. And now we have this disaster taking place. And so I believe they spent a lot of time talking about how they can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, because this plan of the India Middle East Economic Corridor, the Abrams Accord, that's Humpty Dumpty. He sat on a wall, but he had a great fall, and all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And Trump is talking about how we can do that. We get the super glue, put it in, but things have to happen. So I think those are the three things: saving Bibi's political butt, resolving Iran Hezbollah, and how to get Humpty Dumpty put back together again. And I remember talking to the Israelis, they said this fundamentally will change everything, because it's going to change the political dynamic of Israel. It's going to stack the demographics in favor of Netanyahu's Likud party with people who don't understand the Palestinians, who hate the Palestinians. They'll be seeking to impose a very strict Zionist approach on this. And immediately after becoming the president of Ukraine, had to deviate from the promises he made, which was all a lie, to the real agenda. Because this man who said, I would crawl on my knees to Putin, crawl on my knees to have peace, who convinced all the Russian-speaking people out there that he truly believed in resolving the situation in the Donbass nonviolently. No, immediately convened a war conference. There's a videotape of him saying, I will go to war. I will go to war. That's him. So he's been playing a role ever since. Said this. And I remember talking to the Israeli intelligence officer responsible for doing the national assessments. And I remember when I first started, Iraq was the number one. They were going to kill Saddam Hussein.